Hi, welcome to Cloud Whiteout, Adventures in CRM Exploration. I am your host, Gina Safranek. I have 7 Salesforce certifications, and I've been working on the Salesforce platform for 10 years. And I have been working with businesses for 20. The purpose of this podcast, or the purpose of this presentation, is to really help you with understanding what you don't know. A lot of times I read things and I'm like, what are they talking about? And it takes me some time to get up to speed to really understand what they're getting at. Today, we're going to focus on the spring 2024 release notes, specifically around experiences. And so throughout this presentation, you're going to learn more about those release notes and if they mean anything to you and if you need to take any action or if you should be excited for some reason. I do know that the summer 2024 is right around the corner. It probably is already here. And so we're going to touch on those at another date. But today we're going to focus on some things that are going to affect some people. And when you listen to this, it's really meant to help you come to your own answers faster. I'm not giving you any consulting advice while I do that professionally. This is really meant to enhance or energize your learning so that you can make your own decisions quickly. And why this medium? Why am I using this type? It has to do with what type of learner I am. So when I read things, takes me a little bit longer to really ingest. But when I listen or experience things, I just learn much more quickly. Also, this is a great medium for you to listen to while you're in the car driving, on the train, or on a bike. So you can be doing 2 things at once. I do that a lot with some other things. So this is really meant to help energize, expedite, and enhance your learning, help you come to answers quickly. All right, so let's get into it. Today's presentation, I'm going to focus on digital experiences specifically and the release notes for spring 2024. So what is a digital experience? I'm adding an extra word there, right? Digital experience. That's not what we call them anymore. We just call them experiences. But with a lot of things in technology, the names change. You might be familiar with site or portal or community or digital experience. And if you Google anything now, you would be Googling Salesforce experiences. And what these are websites, but they are specifically designed to show your data in a way that you want to present it to maybe publicly, maybe to privately, maybe to internally. So it's your data, presenting it to specific people the way you want it to be presented. So for example, I've built websites or experiences for organizations that were training coaches. And so when the coaches logged into their experience, they only saw the classes they were taking, while the people in the organization could see all the classes that everyone was taking. As a coach, I would log in, I would just see my classes that I was taking, that I was working towards a certification. So same thing for, let's say you are a donor. I've built sites for donors where they log in, they only see their donations, their activity, they don't see everything. And so I'm bringing this up to just help you understand how an experience is your data, but it has some permissions and security around it, so you're not sharing everything. All right, so we're going to talk about 3 specific areas. One is publishing, the other is components, and finally the third is all of the betas. So the first one, publishing, when I first saw it, what this publishing new release said was, anytime you publish a site, you're going to be able to see the changes. And I was like, that's how I read it. When I dug in deeper and looked at it, I was like, oh, well, you don't really see the changes. You see that a change was published by a person and you have that recorded, and at what time. You don't see the change. So that is nice. It is a major improvement because before then, we didn't even see when something was published or when it was published or by who. So for anyone who's very used to using the audit trails, where they can see if someone created a new page layout or someone deactivated a flow and at what time and who it was, if you're used to that type of detail, when you build experiences, you might be wanting that type of detail as well. Well, you don't necessarily get that, but this is a major improvement, being able to see when your site was published, who published it, and at what time. Now, there is a way for you to see what you are going to publish, but it's not very intuitive. It's not obvious. And the way you can see that is you need to go to your site.com user interface. And the way you get there is on your side panel where you have all of your components, your settings, all of that on the left side. Find the advanced option, click on it, and then on that pop-up on that page, you're going to see a site.com option in, I think it's the bottom right. And that site.com, when you click on it, it's going to take you to a very different user interface. It's not going to have that side panel anymore of all of those options. It's going to have a different side panel, and you're going to see a publish button. Click on that button and you will be able to see what you are about to publish. If there's nothing to publish, it'll be blank. I do also want to say when someone clicks the publish button, it's not going to record activity unless there in fact was a change. So if someone goes in there and clicks the publish button, it's not going to record an activity that someone clicked the publish button, if that makes sense. I think it's worth saying because I click the publish button quite a bit. So sometimes I make a change and there were no changes, or I thought it was changed and nothing gets published. Now, since this may not be delivering everything that you hoped, at least in my case, it doesn't deliver everything that I hoped. It's still a major improvement. This was something that was on the idea exchange. So there's other people just like me that wanted to see details around publishing. So since we didn't get all of that, we still have to follow best practices. So using your sandboxes is one of those ways that you can really have a history of what did the portal look like, or what did the experience look like before I made all these changes. So use your sandboxes. Also, I know some of you are, at least for me, change sets around experiences weren't always very friendly. In my experiences, all of the sites I created had quite a few audiences, and audiences wouldn't come over in a change set. And so you'd have to rebuild the audiences, and then you'd have to remember where the audience, where you had those audiences, like if you had it on a component on a certain page. So you had to have pretty good notes in your design document. So we are getting some things, we're not getting everything, but I guess it is reason to celebrate. So I did want to give you some of those behind the scenes, really what this publishing is giving you. All right, let's move on to our second topic, and that has to do with components. So there are two new components, and you can say there's more than two, but it's around two specific areas: the tab component and the record detail record components. The first one I'm going to talk about is the tab, because we already had a tab component. Now, if you have an Aura site, AURA site experience, then you have these components. If you have a Lightning Web Runtime, you probably don't have these components. Lightning Web Runtime sites are newer. I think they debuted 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, and they were very developer friendly, meaning that you really needed to build all of your Lightning Web components from scratch. It gave you the flexibility to really have your design very specific to how you wanted it, but it did take some more work. So the Aura sites, which I'm going to talk about these two components, those sites or those experiences, you could have up and running very quickly. They came with designs. They came with a structure or a template. So you could very quickly pull in your data, tell the site what data you're showing, and then right away you could have a site or an experience. I keep saying site or experience. It just has to do with when I started using them. So when I started using them, they were just called sites, and then they became communities, and then they're now experiences. All right, so when we have this new tab, you're going to see the other tab as well, and the other tab says deprecated. If you are using the deprecated tab, that's okay. You don't have to stop using it. Nothing's going to stop working right now. I don't think it's going to stop working for a long time, but you need to take a couple things into consideration if you are going to use the new tab. So I've used this tab, and every time I've used it, the client did not like specific styling on the tab. So we added our own styling. So we took the original CSS, which SLDS, Salesforce Lightning Design Styles, and we took those styles and we overrid them with our own style. So they have their classes, and we took those classes and we put our own style on it. Now, if you use the new tab, if you're like, oh, we have this old tab, let's just swap it out for the new tab because it's faster, that styling's not going to just come along because there are different classes being used. So take that into consideration. Doesn't mean you can't swap out the old classes for the new classes, but make sure you test it in a sandbox that it looks and operates as you expect before you put that into production, especially since it is customer facing. All right, let's talk about the other thing that you might have going on with your tabs. When you click on each one of those tabs, look at the URL. The URL says your domain, it has your record, it has tab, and then it has a number. You may be navigating to those tabs individually. In the sites that I have built, we had a scenario where a customer filled out a form. They submitted the form. After they submitted the form, I redirected them to the tab where the form was stored so that they could see that it was in fact recorded, and they could go look at that form on their page in an experience. So that being said, you may have navigation going specifically to tabs. So take those into consideration. All right, let's move on to our records. So I mentioned earlier, we have the record detail, the record banner, we have a record side panel. We have, I think it's like 4 or 5 record components that we can use on a record in an experience. So I have my account record, the greatest company in the world. And on that page, I'm using, let's say, the Salesforce out-of-the-box record components. So it's going to show the banner, it's going to show some actions, it's going to show the fields for the details, and every single account that you click on, it's going to have, that same structure. Now, I have a confession. I have never used those components. Even though I build Aura sites, I don't use those components. And the reason is because there are extra buttons or there are selections where the user may get you don't have permission, or the actions are grayed out, or it's a button that says follow me. And they're like, people are like, well, we don't want them following the records. We don't want to see, every little change. So there are things that clients did not want their customers experiencing. Think about it. You invite someone to log into a portal, you invite them to a page, and then you have all these actions and buttons where you're telling them you don't have the permission, or it's grayed out, or what does this do? You really want to have, if you invite someone to come to your page, you really want it to, anything they click on, it's going to be beneficial to them. This has to do a little bit with user experience. You don't want to give people any kind of frustration or any kind of anxiety about, hey, I don't know what happens if I click on this button. Am I supposed to click on this button? For any of you who have participated in any user experience testing, you can see that it is a real thing, the frustration or the anxiety or the unknown. And you really want people to feel comfortable, people to stay there, people to engage, and people to do what you want them to do when they're on that page. All right. So I've never used them. So you're like, well, what do you use? I have used custom Lightning Web Components. I have used some that I've gotten from the Salesforce App Exchange. I have used some that I have built. I have used flows, and I have also used enhanced sortable data grids. So enhanced sortable data grids was built by Salesforce Labs, and you can get it from the Salesforce App Exchange. It is my favorite for showing list views or lists. Okay, so that is what I have used. Confession, I've never used the components. I've always built out record pages that were very clean, did not have actions that people couldn't use. All right, so, but Salesforce has new components. And to replace these other components, and again, I'm sure it's going to be just like the tab, they will say that these other record components are deprecated and that the new ones, you can use the new ones. I don't know exactly what they're going to do because this is still in a beta phase in your sandbox, but I encourage any of you who are interested to go in and test these, use them in your sandbox, give Salesforce some feedback. I would love to see this area improved. I know it would help everyone. I really do come at my developing and consulting. I'm like a coach. I really want to enable people so that they understand what was built and that they have the tools to make changes on their own, or they at least have a deep understanding of what's going on so they can communicate it to others. I don't like people to feel like they're tied to me. I want them to feel like they have options and that they're in control and really own what was built and they really own their data. All right, let's move on to the last area that I want to talk about, which is all the beta stuff. So you may have read these releases, you may or may not have read these releases, but there were a lot of things that looked really cool and they're like, beta, but it's a beta, it's beta. When I looked into those more closely, I realized, oh, that's not for the Aura sites. That's for the LWR sites, the Lightning Web Runtime sites. Oh, okay, this one. So there were a lot of these that were not available to the Aura sites. So if you are like hearing this and going, well, if they're creating all this new beta stuff for the LWR, should I be switching to LWR? It does say, faster, and you don't have to turn your world upside down. Like I said at the beginning, the LWR sites are developer friendly. You still have to build some custom Lightning Web components. You still have to do that. Now, in the 4 years since they first debuted this, or 3 years, it has come a long way. And I could go in and I could get a site up and going very quickly without doing any custom developing, because they do have a lot of components in those LWCs, those in the Lightning Web Runtimes, LWR. We have Lightning Web Components, and now we have LWR, LWC, LWR. All right, so if you are deciding whether or not to use the Aura site or the Lightning Web Runtime sites, LWR, go into your sandbox. You can see, create a new site, create a new experience. Go ahead and look at it, and you can see, you can create those. You're in a sandbox, no big deal, and test it out, see if it works for you. I will say I am still building the Aura sites for people. Again, this is coming from a place of really wanting to coach and enable people to own their site and to make changes on their own. There may be a time when, or an occasion, where the LWR is the better decision. You do see those new beta features coming. And one of them I do want to touch on was improved search engine optimization using custom URLs. And all of the sites I've built, the only, and the public sites, specifically public sites that I have built, you don't really have a custom URL. For example, let's say I'm showing products and I have 1,000 products and all of my products, there is going to be that Salesforce ID. It's going to have that in the URL. I don't want that. I want to have just, let's say, the domain and the product, because that's going to help with search engine optimization. There's other things that help with search engine optimization as well, but that's one of those things where it's like, oh my gosh, I can have a custom URL. I remember for one client building custom pages because they had to have a custom URL. They were moving from I think it was a WordPress site, where in WordPress, you're like, new page, add whatever, and you really build out these pages. In Salesforce, you don't build out the pages, you build out your data. And then the data populates the page based on which record you have selected. So you're not building 1,000 pages, you're building one page and it's getting populated with the data based on what the customer has clicked on. So I was super excited when I saw improved search engine optimization with custom URLs. Not available for the Aura sites, available for the LWR sites, and it is in a beta phase. So a lot of those things, make sure you read them carefully, because they are, even the release notes, right? Everything is grouped together. It says experiences and everything's there. And so you think, I have an experience, this is going to apply to me. And then you look closely and you're like, oh, this is for only LWR sites. Or you may even see some that say this is only available for stores. So there's even that. All right. So just to review, we went over the publishing feature, we went over the components for the Aura sites, and we went over all the new beta features for the LWR. Thank you so much for joining me, and stay tuned next time where we'll cover some more release notes getting into the summer 2024. And as always, surround yourself with people who believe in you, and more importantly, believe in yourself. Have a good day.